Welcome to another episode of PG Radio. I am honored and graced by Vivek Ranjan Agnihotri's presence for my podcast today. Vivek Ranjan is an Indian film director, screenwriter, and an author. Please correct me where I'm wrong. I sometimes get introductions wrong. As of 2019, he's the member
and a guy who knows nothing.
Vivek Ranjan is a guy who knows nothing. He's a member of the panel of Central Board of Film Certification. His film ranges from political themes, sports, to erotic genres. His movies, as Hate Story and the Tashkent Files, garnered both critical as well as commercial acclaim. He is currently in the United States on the Kashmir Unreported tour, where he has been interviewing the Kashmiri diaspora on the stories post the late 80s and early 90s exodus from Kashmir. Vivek, I got informed earlier today that you tweeted something saying that you'd be talking to a brilliant fellow at Columbia about something, and I'm wondering where you got that false impression. What makes you think I'm brilliant at all?
I don't know. Lots of people told me that they wrote to me and they said, Vivek sir, congratulations. You are going to meet a rock star tomorrow. I said, who's that guy?
My parents get false expectations when somebody does that. So, but let's talk about the tour you've been on. And I'm curious, interviewing so many people who've seen crimes of the nature that the Kashmiris have seen in the early 90s and the late 80s. What's your experience been? How is it that kind of sorrow has gone through you? What have the stories been like?
These are gut-wrenching stories, These are inhuman. These are the kind of stuff which you see in Games of Thrones, those kind of stuff. The thing is, what is really saddening and heartbreaking is that for 30 years, a person like me who has been politically, socially so aware, and I read a lot, even I didn't know about these stories, and nobody spoke to these people. Every victim family we speak to, they start crying. Of course, there is a sense of pain and loss of their loved ones, but they start crying because they are so overwhelmed that nobody spoke to them for 30 years, and this is the first time anybody is going to their home and saying, hey, please tell us what happened to you. Mm-hmm. That's all we do. I mean, it's not an interview like question answers. We just sit there and they talk.
Right.
So this story of indifference, I think that is making me very concerned and worried about what's happening in the world, and it's changing me also as a person.
Right. I was made familiar of this story very early on, thanks to my father and a few friends that I had who belonged to the Kashmiri Pandit clan, post-Exodus clan. And I understand that it is some sort of an unvisited trauma. It's a trauma that hasn't been visited either verbally. There have been no accounts. In fact, I've barely come across books that have gotten critical acclaim about this story. And I understand that some part of your project is to bring this to light, right? Is there a documentary? Is there a film? What is the plan?
It's a feature film.
Uh-huh.
But then I started interviewing. What we are doing is we are chasing the truth.
Right.
So what media, Indian media and international media fail to report is to document these stories of loss. So we are now covering it all over the world, in India, in Jammu, Delhi, here, in UK, wherever. In New Zealand, some stories are coming to me. So we said, what are we going to do with these stories? They are primarily meant for the research of the film. So I said, okay, let's put them in a web series, And so this is, the film is called the Tashkent Files.
Right.
And, the Kashmir Files, I'm sorry,
That's
still,
fine.
The hangover is there.
That's fine.
The Kashmir Files, and the web series is called Kashmir Unreported.
That's what I'm curious, because I can understand people who flew all that distance, because going back home is a major motif for these people. Ghar Wapsi is something that they've been waiting for the longest time. If you could spare an instance that you found very interesting going through these stories, if there was something that you found that was particularly remarkable, because I understand both of us have an objective to bring these stories to the mainstream light for people to understand what has happened. Is there a story that you'd be comfortable sharing? Of yourself, like maybe...
Yeah. And this is also, I mean, if there's some psychology student, it's a great story to learn. You are psychology.
Yes.
Oh, then you can appreciate it, And I think the entire humanity must listen to this story, which I'm going to tell you in next 1 minute or so. Okay. So via, we are finding these people who are in small suburbs and near big cities. So I drove from Chicago about 3 hours to meet this young fellow, Himanshu, and we reached 5 minutes early. And when he came, Pallavi and I and his wife were there. When he came, I have honestly in my life, rarely seen such happy people. He was so full of life. He brought in so much of energy. Like when I came, you were full of energy and life. Some people have a lot of life in them. And when you have so much of life, which means you generally had a happy life, you had good parents and you have a good upbringing, you go to good college like Columbia or something. And when he started talking to us slowly, we realized that when he was 5 years old, his father, he was playing cricket and his father came out. He said, come on, we are going out. Let me drop you to your grandmother's house. And took him on his Bajaj scooter and nice breezy winter day and drops him to his nani's house. And after that, he never get to meet his parents. For 18 or 19 or 20, even he doesn't remember very well. For almost since he became adult, nobody told him what happened to his parents. He was told that they have gone to Thailand or they have gone here or there. The nani was very strict, nobody told him. He has a sister who is just 1 or 2 years older than him. Even they never discussed that. And this boy grew happily. He did not even realize that his parents are dead. It's only later on he read some newspaper cutting in his sister's wardrobe and he figured out that his father was shot at by their own neighbors. And his mother, his mother was perhaps gang raped and her breasts were cut and she was cut into pieces on a electric saw machine. He spoke to us for a couple of hours. It was, everybody had tears and we were crying. And after he finished the interview, his wife said that we have been married for 1.5 decades or something like that. And they have been childhood friends. I mean, they know each other since they were... She said he has never ever spoken to us about this and like this for so long in such details. And he told me he has not even spoken to his sister ever about this. And all he kept saying, it was very difficult to penetrate him. And all he kept saying is, what's the point of these memories? What's the point? What's the point? But he broke down when I asked him, do you want to go back to Kashmir? And that's when he sort of broke down because, and this is everywhere, all these people, I think they become cold to the tragedy. They narrate the tragedy without too much of emotion. They break down only when we say, okay, so do people talk to you about this? And that's when they break down that nobody has spoken to us. Instead, what the politics was doing, the government of India, the media and the so-called progressive people of the world, all they kept saying was, no, not 4,500 people were killed, 3,500 were killed, your number is wrong. And people were negotiating on the number of killed people.
The semantics.
Okay, people are saying, no, yes, she was raped, but her breasts were not cut. Yes, her breasts were cut, but she was not cut into pieces. And that's where it shook me up. And I said, I have spent most of my life, I'm 50 years plus now, I'm into a third 3.0 according to Indian ashram vyavastha. In fact, I should be retiring from the grahast ashram also. But I'm at a stage where I say, I spend most of my life learning all these progressive and liberal ideas by my professors and everybody in the world. I'm absolutely no boundary, no bans, no boycott. I'm a totally free soul. I'm a hippie, by nature. I said, what's the point of all these progressive and liberal ideas if we hide real stories?
Right.
There are so many stories in India which have never been told.
Right.
This is just one of them.
Right. It is not just that I've found that there is a cold narration of the stories by these people, but there is this hysterical humor that bleeds in. So I've spoken to somebody about this issue for my podcast. Like I mentioned, he's a friend, and he was telling me about his uncle and his father's story. And the story went something like this. He says, the domestic help walks inside the house. He looks around. He's like, that painting, that statue. Yeah, I'm going to take all of that. And the matriarch, his father's mother, she looks at him and she's like, what the hell are you talking about? And he's like, do you not know? And they're like, no. So he takes my friend's uncle. They were in Srinagar. They go into this garage in Karan Nagar in Srinagar, walks them inside, and there is this buttload of ammunition and guns all over. And he's like, listen, you're going to be taken over. Run. And he says that, and everything else follows. But what I could not get to the bottom at with my friend was, why this uprising even happened against the Hindus. There is almost no coverage that I have discovered about what the sentiment was behind kicking all these Hindus out of Kashmir in the 90s. Have you come across something like that in your tour?
Can I talk honestly
Please,
here?
please.
Right? Okay, so disclaimer. I just want to make it very clear. I am not a very religious person at heart. Okay, I am not bound by one doctrine or one book or idea of how
Right.
this world should be. I think life should be experience based. As you grow and evolve in life, you should keep moving and learn from your real life experiences. That's how one should live life.
Right.
But I definitely understand that there is some kind of a civilizational war in this world. And Christians and Muslims, they have been fighting with each other, that who dominates this world. And in India, the problem is that there has been a civilizational war for over 1,000 years now. And people want domination in terms of geography, in terms of demography, and that's why people invaded India. I mean, that was the reason why anybody would invade a peaceful country which never went out.
Right.
I mean, Indians never even went out. All Hindus, you have to understand this. Even all the students of all great universities must understand this. When I say Hindu civilization, it has no religious connotation. I talk about Hindu civilization. Hindu civilization is people who basically under Himalaya and above Arabian Sea and the Indian Ocean, people who are researching about the concept of life, cosmos and beyond. This was one of the greatest creative civilizations of the world. Okay, what is creativity? Creativity is, of course, inventing this cup, inventing this mic, but in hierarchy of creativity, a society which invents 4 most peaceful religions is a great creative society. A society which understood the astronomy and the relationship of human beings with the cosmos, okay, is a great creative society. So we were a creative society. We were inventing things like Ayurveda, yoga, meditation, spirituality, and a whole lot of things. Rasayanik Shastra, which is chemistry, and the astronomy, the concept of zero, mathematics. We never took guns and swords to invade others.
Right.
While the West was exploring the geographic continents of the world, we were exploring the internal continents of human life.
Existence, right.
Existence, yeah. When Islamic religion set out to invade the world, okay, they came to India also. And since then, this war is going on, that who dominate this continent. Now, India belongs to Hindu civilization. It is their land. There is no argument in this world which can justify that anybody else has ownership. But fortunately, the greatness of Hindu civilization is that we are the only land which has given shelter to people, and not just shelter. Not just shelter like you give shelter to people, to black people or to Jews, and you say, hey, we are giving you shelter, you can live here, but you can never become the president of US, you can never become the chief justice of a Supreme Court, and you have, that's all, go and live in your ghettos. No. We said, okay, you believe in gods, fine, you are a Hindu. If you don't believe in God, you are a Hindu. If you are a Parsi, you are still part of this civilization. You believe in Allah, wonderful, make your masjid, fine, no problems. I say Inshallah all the times. I never say Jai Shri Ram or Hare Ram because I grew up in Bhopal. That's my cultural upbringing. Bollywood movies always use Khuda, Rabba, Allah. Nobody even questions that. The 3 biggest stars of India are Muslim guys. And 2 of them are hardcore practicing Islamic people. Shah Rukh Khan never says Namaste. He only says Salam, Salam, Salam. He never says by the grace of Ram or Krishna. He says by the grace of Allah. That's all he says, despite being married to a Muslim Hindu woman. But I say Inshallah all the time. So our prime ministers have been saying, we don't care. We go to Gurudwara wearing a turban and all. We have not given shelter, we have given them respect, and they have become an integral part of the society. We are the only diversity in the world which is interactive, which means a Muslim talks to Hindu on everyday basis, Christians talk. When yesterday Anupam Kher was saying, and which is so true, Bombay, when I drive from Warsaw to Nariman Point, there are masjids and gurudwaras and mandirs. Every time we do this and this, every single driver, Bihari, Pandeji and Mishraji, when they are driving, you see them keep doing this.
Right.
So we are basically a very liberal society. We are very progressive scientific society. A society which has invented the concept of family and joint families, independent units, the temple system. We are an amazingly great creative society. Now to come there and kill those people, destroy their buildings, loot their wealth, destroy their crops, burn their villages after villages, okay, and rule them, despite them ruling after they came few hundred years later, we still invented a language called Urdu only for Muslims in India. Which other country has done? US, such a liberal society, has not created a language for Muslims or the minorities, right? But India has. We put all, so such a great society in Kashmir. They want to capture Kashmir. It's a civilizational war. And the scam, the trick we have played is, we call it a political war, human rights war. No, it is purely a religious civilizational war. They want Hindus out of that place. And that's why Hindu civilization, which is so inclusive, that Hindu civilization has Muslims, Christians, Buddhists, Parsis, Iranis, Jains, Sikhs, you name it, and they are part of that. We don't have this fight anywhere else.
Right.
If 20 crore Muslims, I don't know how you translate that in hundreds and thousands in American number, but 20 crore Muslims live in India as with equal rights, with same dignity and respect. If they can become president of India, Supreme Court justices, they can be in army, they can be anywhere. Why just 4.5-5 lakh Hindus live in Kashmir, which is a Hindu place named after Rishi Kashyap? That is my question.
Right. So your response is that this seems to be a civilizational war.
It is.
Right. But here is my question in response to that, and this will probably help us bring more clarity as to what a civilizational war would mean in context of the Hindu civilization. Because you referred to the Hindu civilization many times being this all-inclusive entity, this grand umbrella within which we can all find ourselves. But one of the most important debates I think we are probably not having enough in India right now is the debate for what constitutes the national identity of India. What does an Indian, what does a Hindu mean? There are so many versions of the concept of Hindu right now that it's becoming sort of muddled. And the one that is emerging right now is the concept that is being peddled by the hard right in India. Which, I mean, for the sake of the conversation, I have no problem with. But to explore what the concept of Indian, the identity of being an Indian means, what in your view is that? What does being an Indian mean? Like, is it India before Babur came? Is it India after the British left? Who belongs to India?
Okay, now this question, I'm sorry, but you are a wonderful guy, but you have spent some time in US and Colombia. This is a very template question. It's a very Western question. Indian philosophy, the Hindu thought is nirakar, which means which has no shape, which has no boundary. You can't, it's Ardhanarishwar, it's a man also, it's a woman also.
Right.
The cosmic dance of Shiva, the Tandav Nritya of Shiva, is when he's there, he's not there.
Right.
When he's dynamic, he's static. When he's static, he's dynamic. When he's male, he's female. Everything. It believes in myriad of possibilities.
Right.
Everything is possible.
Right.
Science starts from Big Bang Theory. We say when before Big Bang Theory was also something was there. After death also something is there. And that's why I said it's very important for the West to learn, which is fighting a war against Trump on liberalism, on progressiveness, inclusiveness. These are new words to West. That's why they are so fascinated, like they're fascinated with vegan diets and keto diets. These are very faddish concepts for them. It's in our DNA. An Indian child, when he's born, he doesn't question what is liberal, what is progressive, because he is. He doesn't have to question all these things.
Right.
So your question, what is a Hindu?
What is the national identity of India?
India does, first of all, India is not a constitutional nation. Though we are forced to believe in constitution, and unfortunately that's how it is going to be. But India is a cultural identity. And that's why we never had a boundary.
Right.
All these modern liberals talk about no boundary. We have practiced no boundary.
Right.
Okay, we were spread from Afghanistan to Indonesia. When the disciple of Buddha started walking, see, Buddha is nothing. Buddha has just repackaged Vedas, the knowledge of Vedas. Buddha has never invented anything new. Buddha never discovered anything new.
I think I have a disagreement to pull with that.
Yeah.
And I think that will help us bring back to the question too.
Yeah.
But I think Buddha definitely, after having spent a considerable amount of time reading Hinduism and mostly Buddhism, I think there was
it's a new interpretation.
Yeah, it's an iteration. There was a significant improvement that Buddha
I'm a
made.
great believer. I run an NGO called I Am Buddha Foundation.
Right, precisely, precisely.
So,
but here is why I asked you that question before, and the reason why I asked you that question is because if there is no boundary to the cultural identity of India, how do we make the fact that it is a civilizational war? Like, who is the other side if the boundary is extending to the other side as well? Aren't Kashmiri Muslims? Someone might ask, and let's just say it's not me, also Indians, if they are trying to fight for the land in whatever capacity, way or form, isn't that part of the same Indian umbrella of identity?
Okay, brilliant question. I really love this and I would love to answer this. See, Indian Muslim is a different kind of a Muslim from rest of the Muslims in the world. Okay, Indian Muslim is like Akbar Ali Khan, Bismillah Khan. Bismillah Khan, before playing Shehnai, okay, one of the greatest. Shehnai is also a gift of Islam to India. Okay, when he would play Shehnai, first he'll do Saraswati Vandana. Okay,
right.
And a lot of Hindu singers and artists, they will go to a dargah. In fact, you see Ajay Devgan and all these actors from India, before release of their movie, they go to Ajmer Dargah. You know, so that's not an issue. What is happening in Kashmir is they want to establish a kind of a caliphate over there. These are hardcore Islamists who are funded. See, without funding, they can't run this war for so long.
Precisely.
Somebody is paying the stone pelters.
Precisely.
These are violent people. They are terrorists. So this Islamic terrorism entered Kashmir for 1300 years. They were Muslims. Okay, and they slowly, the demography was changing from 100% Hindu population. With the force of sword, it started shrinking, and 1947 it came down to 5%. But still there was no problem. The problem actually started when they collaborated with Pakistan, these hardcore Islamic IS and Taliban and all those kind of forces, because they were appeased for so long by the Western world on one side, and India also appeased them a lot, and they somewhere started. And Kashmir is also, from defense point of view, is a buffer state. There are very few buffer states in the world, which means if you are in Kashmir, you have got the Central Asia, and then you approach Far East Asia.
And you have a good wall of defense if you have Kashmir.
Yeah.
Right.
So during Cold War, everybody was fighting to have their presence in Afghanistan, Kashmir, and these kind of regions. So these regions became disturbed because Russia sent their money for arms, America sent their money for arms, and these became like the theater for Cold War.
Right.
And since then, Kashmir has been very, very disturbed. And Indian politicians were also not far-sighted, had no vision, and they just kept playing to localite politics rather than
a vote bank politics. Right?
Yeah. And that's why you see it's been taken over today by international forces. These young boys and girls in Kashmir have no idea what they want. So they keep saying Azadi. How will they can never get Azadi. Either they will go to Pakistan or they'll come to India.
Practically, yes.
Practically they can never.
Absolutely.
And if they do, even if hypothetically speaking, if they become an independent nation, that India will start attacking them. Pakistan, right now, they are attacked only by Pakistan, then they will be attacked by India, then Pakistan and Russia, and from China. And from, in fact, China to right now is an active player there.
Right.
So it's a very difficult situation, and I feel so sad. My heart bleeds for these Muslim young boys and girls of Kashmir. Everybody thinks they are all stone pelters. They are stone pelters because they don't know anything else. Nothing. So all these Hindus who were thrown out of Kashmir have become doctors and engineers and lawyers and writers and creative people. They got educated, but their neighbors, the children they have grown up with, they have played gulli danda and cricket with, those young kids are still throwing stones at Indian army. That is the difference, and that's why I feel so sad that international agencies have actually screwed up the entire generation of Muslim boys and girls in Kashmir.
Here is how I say it. I say tragedy occurs in the absence of an infrastructure for meaning. There is no way people can find not just an economic livelihood but a psychological livelihood, and therefore they get drawn to these tragedy inciting activities like stone pelting. And I've heard a lot of reports about drugs being peddled in those areas, and addictive drugs that form part of the loop that perpetuates more stone pelting for the drugs, and then but let me get you to your film, this film that you're coming out with, Kashmir Files. What is this film about? What are we discussing in this film? What is the communication of the film?
See, so far I'll tell you what my journey is in. Buddha in a Traffic Jam, I was very intellectually fascinated with the leftist terror war, proxy war on India. Tashkent Files, I became emotional about the subject. And I said, there is something which should be told to people. So let's do research. So I became more academic. This film, I am doing nothing. I am just a medium. I don't know how I became medium. Actually, I said, aha, this is a great story. One should talk about it. So now this, I don't have a script as yet. Okay, script is just happening somewhere in the universe. And I know one day I'll tune like a FM this thing,
right,
and boom, it will come in my inbox. I know that.
Right.
Something is telling me.
Right.
But this is just going to be the story of the genocide, what happened in January 1990.
Right.
So that the generation see it themselves. This is going to be without any exaggeration, but I am also not going to downplay it to appease anybody or make people happy. I'll just tell the story the way I've heard, felt it. When I've hugged a person, how I felt, I'm going to tell.
Right.
So it's going to be just a visual depiction of how the genocide took place.
And what do you think, how is that going to add to the larger discourse on Kashmir?
Okay. Now it's a war of narratives, you know that. All of us know that. Okay, and I am not a politician, but I am a storyteller. And I am a very, very fearless storyteller. If I got to tell a story, I tell wherever I am, I don't care.
I've observed that.
Yeah. And I do it with all decency and a civil manner, but yes, I'm very assertive about what I feel. So in this war of narratives, the problem is these poor Hindus, the minority of Kashmir, and really minuscule minority. The Muslims in India are 20% of the population, approximately 18 to 20%. But these Kashmiri Hindus were 2% in Kashmir. And they were thrown out. So this film is going to equip them with a visual story, which they can tell their children, this is how it happened.
Right.
And it's going to contribute to this war of narrative where people have been bringing on table a lot of sympathy and compassion for Muslims, poor Muslims. They have no network, they have no data, they have no 4G. So they will realize that when the dreaded terrorists like Burhan Wani is killed by the Indian army, for 9 months they themselves voluntarily they locked down everything, and Hindus also suffered. Second thing, people have to understand that it's just the Kashmir Valley. But right now my unit is shooting in Jammu, and for 7 days we have not been able to communicate because Jammu is a fully Hindu population and there is no 4G and network. And they are not complaining. They are not complaining because they know it is important for the security of India. Then why this handful of people are complaining so much? Why the international media and the lobbies are taking so much interest in them and not taking interest in the other 70-80% of the population? They also don't have access to the same thing.
Right. I want to get back to the media blackout as an issue in the entire phenomena, but I want to get at something more seminal before that. I think in an interview or in a conversation that you were having with the Kashmiri lobby, and I think this was in Jammu because I saw it on YouTube, you spoke about the fact how almost all genocides and all major tragedies in the world have imageries and symbolism and visual representations and audio representation. There are songs and there are slogans that get carried through generations that tell the stories in simple, small words and compressed images. But the Kashmiri genocide does not. Could you talk a little more about how you want to influence the cultural space of India, how you want to influence the conversation around Kashmir with adding this symbolic imagery to the tragedy?
Great, I'm so thankful you are the only person. This is very close to my heart. Very extremely. If you ask me, there is one thing which you are willing to die for, this is exactly what it is. I believe art and literature and creativity is the soul of any society. India's biggest problem today is that art, literature and creativity is going down. What I discovered in my research, that this entire Kashmiri Hindu community, the next generation, means the generation after the victims, their children, wherever they are either playing flutes or they are writing poetries or they are writing stories. They are doing some kind of a creative expression and they are not realizing it. Even their parents are not realizing it. Which means a tragedy also gives birth to a lot of creativity.
To life. Yes.
Actually. And I always say this, I don't know when I got this thought, but I always say that there are 7 emotions in creativity, different kinds of ras in Hindi, this thing. Or there are 7 notes in music, but the damaged people know the 8th note. So that's why they are very special people, and they should be treated like heritage, and they should be like preserved by rest of the humanity.
Very interesting.
Kashmir, I think the major downfall came the day they burnt the only cinema hall they had.
In Srinagar?
Yeah. And they shut down all the theatre. Nobody was allowed to sing. Nobody was allowed to dance. That's why, see, I have no problems with Islam. Honestly, if you cut me, in my heart you'll find I have no problems with Islam. I'm not one of those who have problems with Islam. I have no problem. My only problem with the practice, a certain kind of Islam which does not let young boys and girls sing, dance, write, or be creative. Right. In last 70 years, forget the history of Kashmir, then we can go on and on. Just look at the 70 years of Kashmir. Look at the contribution of Kashmiri Hindus in the field of art, literature, music, everything.
Business, all of that.
So much they have created, means the wealth is so much of creation. Whatever you may say, there are Kashmiri Hindus in Bollywood, in theatre, in music and literature, and not somebody who grew up in Bombay, people who were in Kashmir. Name one contribution of Islamic Kashmir in art, literature, culture, anything. Name one. I challenge the biggest of the human rights activists and the intellectuals and the media, anybody who speaks for them, put it on table and show me one thing they have created. Their only contribution is they have destroyed cinema halls, they have killed theatre groups, they have shot people who were singing. As recent as just few months back, this young girl was expressing herself creatively. Wasima, what's her name? She did some Amir Khan film. Then under pressure, she had to run back, and she said, no, now I am going to be a hijab wearing person. Muslim I don't want this. There was some band, a girls band or something, creative rock band. They used to sing. Where are they now? I have interview on my phone. I can show you off the records when we finish this. These young boys who were doing my line production in Kashmir. Brilliant singer. I mean, his poetry is so amazing. I mean, these are great creative people. But he said, don't tell anybody that I sing or I write. The only thing you hear today is in Kashmir. When you go there, the only music you will hear or lyric, or I mean the melody you'll hear is ayats of Quran, which keep coming on radio and this thing. Nobody talks about it because the minute you talk about it, people are going to attack you. Like they attack me.
Right.
But this is the truth. All these people who have destroyed art and literature are the criminals of humanity. They are not the criminals against India. Their crime is against humanity. Anybody who burns any book is a criminal.
The smallest fact correction. I recently bumped across this Kashmiri Muslim artist who's a rapper who tells his story living in
Srinagar.
He's moved to Delhi now to pursue his career, but he's from Srinagar. You might want to check him out. He might work along with your project. I will forward his details to you as well.
I think I know. I've got that link. Yeah,
possibly.
But he can't. Can he go back and do the rap in Srinagar?
I don't know. I would not be able to tell you
I
that.
can guarantee he cannot go back. And
it's a difficult place to do that. I do agree. But let me ask you this: we swept past the media blackout and the way it is handled. In fact, I'll place my opinion on the table first. I think the way 370 was abrogated back in August was one of the most efficient political moves I've seen from the Indian regime ever. Yeah. Right? Like dossiers sent overnight, all international powers were asked to stay aside while India made that move. They communicated with the military and they communicated with the bureaucracy very, very well, and then they went ahead to abrogate Article 370. But then a media blackout was instantiated. And that media blackout has lasted since August up until now. And I'm very willing to work with the idea that this is important for security, even though I have very libertarian ideas about how this should be run. I do, however, am afraid for the crimes that can be potentially committed in a blackout where there is no communication to and fro. What do you think about this prolonged state of media blackout that is being put to Kashmir? And not just on the level of humanity, but on a strategic level. The fact that the longer this continues, the more unwanted attention we garner, and the more as India, our plan might not work out to, accede Kashmir back into India as a full state. What do you think about that?
If you ask me at a very personal level, I don't believe in these blackouts. Okay, but I also understand there must be, I'm not an expert.
Right.
okay, and I'm not an excited activist who would have an opinion on everything under this earth.
Right.
I do not understand defense strategy so well. There must be a reason why Ajit Doval and all these people are doing it, and they are not stupid people that they don't understand how international media or everything works. They understand, but the problem is that anything happens, used to happen in Kashmir, within no time, within 2-3 minutes,
There'd be
there
agitation.
hundreds of stone pelters will come, which means these social media was working very actively.
Right.
And today this I know from the horse's mouth, from very, very reliable sources, and not just Indian sources, but the strategic defense people all over the world, is that Kashmir on one hand has a huge drug problem, the drug mafia, and they also have cyber crime problem. The cyber crime of Kashmir is not limited only to Kashmir. Kashmir became because Kashmiri Muslim young boys and girls go to Indian universities and they are very educated and very good with IT. I don't know why, but they have this special talent. So Kashmir became hub for cyber crime in Syria, in Afghanistan, in all these troubled places, up to Russia and all that. You'll be surprised to know that you use Facebook so often. In Kashmir, these cybercrime boys and girls don't use Facebook. There's no Facebook in Kashmir. You'll very rarely find these Kashmiris living in Kashmir using Facebook. They have something else called Cash Book, Kash, not money cash. Kashmir, short form, Cash Book. Now nobody knows about it, nobody has access to it, and that's where they spread different kind of a narrative. Okay?
Right.
And they are very systematically well planted and all that. Perhaps that is one of the reasons that government wants to destroy the drug mafia, the cyber mafia first, and then they want to approach. I am actually not an expert, so I won't say anything, but I would rather wait and watch for at least 1 or 2 months more.
Right.
Yesterday, the Consul General of India, Mr. Sandeep Chakrabarti, he was in a gathering with us, and he said something officially. He said something unofficially, and then he said something officially. So officially he said today's India is not yesterday's India. So people, if want to look at India from yesterday point of view, they are wrong. Where your political thinking ends, that's where ours starts. So he said this won't be for long, but whenever this lockdown is out, people will be safe. That's what he said, and he's Consul General, so I'm sure he won't say anything irresponsible.
Right.
And for one day when they lifted, 1 or couple of days, they lifted. It's not that they did not try. They lifted, and within no time these Apple vendors were killed. Again, when they tried to lift it, they lifted now, and within half an hour, 1 hour, these 11 labor from Bihar or Gujarat, I think, they were shot down. I mean, don't take it as the most credible information, but I know 11 number.
Right.
They were Bihar or Gujarat, I'm not sure. I think maybe Gujarat. Somewhere from rest of India.
West Bengal.
So they were shot immediately. They were killed. Then one day, one Muslim guy who opened his shop initially, then he was killed the minute which means you do something, they spread the news, and that must be the reason.
Right. Let me invite you at this point to take an educational guess, right?
Okay.
And this is guesswork, so we can feel pretty safe making speculations. How would you ideally want the situation in Kashmir to pan out from here? What would be your ideal vision of Kashmir, say 6 months down the line, a year down the line?
If it's left to me,
yeah. If
for
God Almighty,
if for one day I become the
like Nayak, yes.
If I become the Nayak, the first thing I'm going to do is I will send lots and lots of Indians from different parts of India to Kashmir. I think my first job will be that, to ensure that Kashmir has a lot of rest of Indians. I mean, people, it's wrong jargon, but people from different states of India. For 2 reasons. A, they will then understand what is happening in Kashmir.
Right.
They will also understand about the new generation, and they will take this message to other states.
Right.
Because if Kashmiris are ignorant about rest of the states, then rest of the states are equally ignorant about Kashmir.
Right.
And our learning is coming from mediators, which is they have motive, they have an agenda, like the media. When diversity interacts, they find their own solutions, they don't depend on anyone. It's only when diversity does not interact, then they need the third person like UNO or human rights activists, or then you need Washington Post or New York Times or Fox or whatever.
Right.
So these echo chambers listen about others from the third party, and this third party suddenly gets the power. Okay,
Right.
so they use this power. If you are in India, so when in India a boy and girl need to get married, there is some mediator which can
The
be your
family.
buaji
Yes.
or your tauji or somebody.
Right.
So whoever is getting these people married suddenly becomes the most powerful person.
The most important person in the room.
Yeah,
Right.
and at will he can do anything. You know, so that's what the people. I want the middleman to go out.
Right.
So my first job would be to get these people together, and the second thing is revival at a supersonic speed with lot of enthusiasm and lot of positivity to bring creativity back to Kashmir.
What do you think about economic investment?
See, economic investment, what will it do? It will happen naturally. Economic investment will always flourish in a nice, peaceful place.
Right.
Right? Economic, you cannot force people. I went to Raipur recently and let's do development, and they created Naya Raipur, huge big space. He's from Chhattisgarh, he would know. Huge big space. Right? But nobody lives there, nobody goes there because there is no connectivity.
Right.
Right? But in Raipur, it's not that Raipur is economically weak. Raipur is also growing very fast. Where is it growing? Where there's cinema hall, there is theater, people go eat different kind of food, you know, things like that.
You have a concept of civilization based around art, and it's a very novel idea. I'm happy.
What is this world without, imagine your life without stories, just tell me one thing.
Right. It's practically dead at that point. It's
Yeah.
boring. But a lot of people, when they found out that you and I are going to be talking, asked me to talk to you about your concept of nationalism, because that is something people either agree a
Yeah.
lot with or disagree a lot with. So, what is your concept of nationalism? How nationalistic are you?
My concept is that anybody who has to define nationalism is a stupid person. Honestly.
No, I think there is.
And I think the failure of current government also. Let me tell you about the right wing of India. I have
Right.
only one major complaint with them.
Right.
I love some of those people. They have given their lives to build India. They have done great social work and such honest, nice, wonderful people. My biggest problem with them is that after being in power for 6 years, they keep doing these literature festivals and conferences, and the theme is let's define nationalism.
Right.
After 70 years of independence, you have to define nationalism. So nationalism to me is this, and it's not the first time I'm saying this, I always say this. Integrity, above all, everything. When you say I'll meet you at 10 o'clock, meet the person at 10 o'clock. If you say I'll make your payment on Friday 10 o'clock, make that payment. When you say something, mean it. Number 2, efficiency and productivity. Okay, you are supposed to stop at red light, you are stopped to drive in your lane, just do that.
Right.
Don't throw filth on street. Okay, just care about your neighbor. I mean, don't talk to him, it doesn't matter whether you know him or not, but don't harm him. Don't cheat people, don't be corrupt. Just do your job sincerely. Okay, and don't try to eliminate the other person, don't try to dominate his space.
Right.
I think that is nationalism. What is nationalism? What are you going to do with a nation with 70% poor people and homeless people hating each other? What, and just saying my soldier, my jawan. And that's why I say anybody who genuinely from his heart believes in nationalism will never stand up and say Bharat Mata ki jai, Bharat Mata ki jai. He would do the kind of karmas, the kind of things he will do so that the entire world says Bharat Mata ki jai. That to me is nationalism.
Right.
And which is why I am running 15 hours, 16 hours a day everywhere I am doing, because in most of my life I have seen a very third rate, a very, very dumbed down kind of nationalism. I want world to recognize that India is a great place, it's a creative place. Don't go by optics of crowd and honking and all that. Inside there are great people, great creative society.
Right.
And that's all I'm trying to do, people to understand that we are a great civilization. By destroying or harming Hindu civilization, the world is going to become another Kashmir. We are the soul of this world. Help us, protect us, preserve us, help us grow. Right? So I am not into hyper nationalism, and I think nationalism is not about only soldiers standing and fighting at the border.
Right.
Nationalism is about how we look after our heritage, our literature, our people, our family system. Anybody who's, your children are working in US, you are sending them to convent school, you are asking them that you should go and work for Microsoft, Google, you have an American dream in your mind. And then you go on Twitter and Facebook and you say, my soldiers are dying and I stand for India and Bharat Mat. It's got no meaning. This is so ridiculous. Work for the country, create something, innovate something, help the society, add value to whatever you are doing, wherever you are doing, help build a spiritual, creative consciousness, then you are a nationalist.
Right. The reason why I wanted to pull on that thread is because there are people I grew up with, people who I'm very close with, who have a concept of nationalism that I think might lead them astray in the long run. And I speak as India, right? And the India that I speak of is different from the political party that is in power, right?
Yeah.
So very recently I've seen the sentiment, and feel free to comment or we can move on to the next, but very recently I've seen the sentiment where there is a hesitance to criticize India and the political power in India right now. And the label that is used with that hesitance is that of patriotism or nationalism. And I think that is a very ill-mannered approach to go to that place. If I, say for instance, love you, if I love you, I still will criticize you because I want to see you get better, right? And that is how we should be perceiving the concept of nationalism as well. If I love India and I'm very pro-India, I still am free to criticize where India is going wrong. And if I don't do that, I'm not being judicious in my approach.
Then you're not nationalist if you're not criticizing.
Yes, you're jingoistic or something along those lines. But here, tell me about, you became popular for coining the term urban naxals in 2011 with your film The Buddha and a Traffic Jam, and then the book that followed, Urban Naxals. I have a worry, and tell me if I'm wrong about that worry. My worry is that these words, which are very creatively coined, might end up losing their meaning because they will be applied very loosely. It is very quickly we can call all liberals as communists and all right-wing conservatives as fascists and everybody on this, on the spectrum. So when I was thinking about this thought, I had 4 different categories of people who might be mislabeled or who might be collectively labeled under the term urban naxals, and tell me what you think about that. So there is obviously the naxals that are fighting, the militant armed naxals. I don't know if they exist any longer with that force. I don't think they do, but then there are people who live in the urban areas who are actively in support, right?
Yeah.
Who provide money and so on, like Anupam Kher in the film that you made, Traffic Jam, Buddha and a Traffic Jam. Then there are people who are sympathetic to them, but who provide no money or whatnot. They're just sympathetic to the fight that the Naxals have. And then there are people who believe that these tribals have been very oppressed since the beginning. My concern is all 4 of them would be labeled as one, and then we will lose our power of nuance, our credibility to sort through who is on our side and who is definitely not on our side. What do you think about that? Do you think that term is being used very loosely? Do you think it has been in the past?
Yeah, I think it's been abused also by a lot of people, but I'm not guilty of that. I have never ever even once used it against anybody or everybody. And in every speech, everybody, wherever I go, the same kind of question, but you have asked it intelligently. People asked very popular way, populist manner.
I'm not a journalist.
Yeah, you are lucky, good karmas.
Right.
I always mention, even see in the film I never said that everybody is an urban naxal. In the book I never said that. I've explained in great detail who's an urban naxal. I say anybody who is funded by the red terror money or Islamic terror money to run a proxy war in the tribal areas of India is obviously is a naxal. But this money doesn't go directly to naxals, it goes through urban naxals.
Right, through the funnels.
Yeah. So I call them urban naxals. The reason I call them urban naxals is because of ignorance of people and because of the media, it was always the impression was given that this war is being fought only in tribal areas, in jungles of Bastar. So modern India, everybody thought, oh, I have nothing to do with this.
Right.
It's not my problem. There's some jungle where tribal people live,
Right.
It's not my problem.
Right.
Like people in Silicon Valley are not bothered about what's happening to Red Indians or their rights or whatever. But the minute you say one of you in Microsoft or Google is actually the guy who's responsible for all this oppression, then they sit up and they say, oh my God, he's somewhere close to me. And that's exactly what the point I wanted to make was that in India, openly in cities, big cities, they are running big operations. They have Wi-Fi. In jungle, they don't have Wi-Fi. How will they run cybercrime?
Right.
You know, there's no 4Gs and networks don't work, and you think they are running cybercrime? No. The people who are running now finally are behind the bars. So these are professors like Sai Baba of Delhi University, assistant professor, I think he was, and the Sudha Bharadwaj and 1 Hour and all these people now are behind the bars, and officially they have been called urban naxals, not by me, by the Home Minister of India of Congress Party, Home Minister of BJP, or Chief Ministers of various different parties in Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu. Yesterday this boy was, I posted it today, was caught in Kerala. He was injured, he was getting treatment. Who was treating him? He was being treated by an urban naxal doctor who has been funding naxals, you know. So these are the people I was attacking.
Right.
But now this is the modern tragedy of the modern social media world, that then somebody who is sitting in Bombay doing IT job, has suddenly his boss shouts at him, he comes back and he says, hey, all of you are urban naxals. You know, so they write it's like Me Too movement, you know. It's exactly like Me Too movement. In Me Too movement, everybody, anybody who speaks against feminism immediately is attacked. You are also part of those misogynist and that kind of a world. But somebody might be expressing his opinion and he has nothing to do with this. Here also, anybody who gets involved in this dialogue, a lot of people attack them, calling them urban naxals. But that is the beauty of democracy also. I think over a period of time, people will understand who is who.
Right.
Like calling somebody Bhakt. Everybody may not be a Bhakt. He may have voted for Modi.
Right.
Doesn't mean that he's a blind supporter. Right? I have voted for Modi, but I told you I don't like that kind of nationalist dialogue. I am not happy with that.
Right.
I also criticize government on many, many issues. You know, so I'm not a Bhakt, obviously.
Right.
But they call me Bhakt.
Right.
So I say, okay, let's live with it.
Yeah. Let's stave off Me Too, because it's a massively complicated issue. And
Yeah, so I don't.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Okay.
But I want to talk about your filmography now, especially Buddha in a Traffic Jam, which really made a mark on me. I was very impressed. Particularly by this one, actually two different things, but I'll pose the first one. And what was really impressive to me was that film communicated a non-bias from the very beginning. It was very difficult to follow what the right side that you should align yourself with was in the entire film. Anupam Kher seemed right in his own view, and Arunodaya Singh.
Yeah.
Arunodaya Singh. He's a great poet, by the way. I've been on his Instagram for a while. They both seem to be representing almost the right sides to the last moment, to the last scene where they have that interaction in that room. And so you sort of provide a narrative without placing a value judgment, except the value judgment is on the methods that are being communicated. I think that was very well done, and I want to thank you for bringing to light a political dialectic of that nature without aligning yourself in any fashion.
Thanks.
The second thing I want to pick on is, which I thought would not be the case when I had heard that we'd be talking initially, is the sex friendliness that you bring to your films. It's absolutely unlike any other Bollywood production that I ever come across, where at least in Buddha and a Traffic Jam, sex was discussed as freely as it was. And I'm in favor of that. I think we need to be having a massive open conversation about sex in India. But the film was also extremely cigarette friendly. There were too many cigarettes being smoked in the film. And I'm wondering if that has a particular motif, if that has a particular connotation in that film, or was it just that everybody smokes?
I don't smoke.
Right.
You know, I'm not a smoker. But see, when you go to some place, there's a first impression. You know, you come into this room, the first impression can be, oh, so many jackets are hanging there.
Right.
I don't know. It's a director's impression. You know, anybody can observe anything. When I first went to ISB, I always thought these must be very studious students. You know, they must be, of course they are, they work very hard, they have to study very hard. So I thought, but they must be very different, you know, from regular college canteens. But the first evening when I spent in their dorm, okay, I just couldn't sit there for more than 10 minutes because everybody was chain smoking. And wherever I went, everybody was chain smoking, and you are not allowed to smoke in the regular, the main dome. Evening, they will sit all around, and everybody is smoking or smoking up, you know, something or the. So that became an impression that in a closed room, everybody is smoking. So I think director's subconscious impression, that's how it came out. And that was the thing that I, as a non-smoker, found myself in this balloon of smoke.
Right.
That's how it happened.
Right.
You know, yeah.
There was one very interesting scene, and that's where I was like, maybe I should talk to him about the cigarettes. When Anupam Kher walks to his wife and he borrows one cigarette,
Yeah.
right, and then he takes a drag and then he's like, I'm no longer interested. And that I was wondering if there was an underlying communication that was being done through the means of cigarette.
Yeah, and also, everybody in India knows, I don't know if you know, when I was in college, I was also part of this naxal group, you know.
Really?
Yeah, and it's a very third, fourth, fifth dimension nuance and subtext. Maybe when I'm not there and somebody writes story about my films, maybe
Give me the rights.
some crazy, okay, some crazy, and nobody noticed this.
Right.
Only you are one of those people who noticed that. The thing is, how a middle class, small town, son of a teacher, of a clerk or a bank manager comes to big universities like JNU or
Delhi
Jadavpur or
University.
any Delhi University or any big city university and becomes a leftist. No parent in India, no family in India, I can guarantee, Hindu or Muslim or Jain, will ever influence their child to become a leftist. You become a leftist only when you come to the university.
By leftist, you mean like
The
far
people
left.
who believe in far
left, like communistic left.
who say attack Indian government,
Right.
State.
Anti-establishment.
Anti-state,
Anti-state.
not anti-establishment, anti-state, who just want to, who are never happy with anything. People. So the first thing which happens is that the senior boy, a leftist boy, will come and he'll offer him a cigarette. He says, sorry, I don't smoke. I am Pandey ji's son. You know, I put tilak, I don't smoke. No, kya kar diya ye? Then what kind of a boy are you?
Right.
Are you still scared of your parents? You are an 18-year-old man, you are not free. The beginning, जैसे कि तिलक लगा के किसी को हिंदू बनाते हैं.
Right. The initiation process.
या बैप्टिज्म कैसे करते हैं, उस तरह से जो इनका जो बैप्टिज्म है, इनका जो जनेऊ है और whatever their मुंडन is, that begins with a cigarette, next is alcohol, third is free sex, and the fourth is Marx.
It is similarly in my
Fourth
friend
is
group.
Marx.
Fourth is Marx?
Yeah.
I see.
Then it's very easy. Once you have become one of them, then you sit at 2 o'clock at night drinking and smoking and talking about free sex, and the Marx is introduced.
Gets peddled in.
This is what happened with me, and whoever I've spoken to, the leftist boys and girls, this is exactly what's happened with them. So right, I was a Kanhaiya Kumar of 80s,
Right.
you know, and today's Kanhaiya Kumar also has to go through that.
That initiation progression is very much similar to my friend group, except the Marx part. We still do not like Marx very much. But let me now talk to you about one very interesting bit. I think this should be interesting. You also are on the censor board of, right?
No, it's not censor board. It's
certification. Film certification, right? And it's a tangential credential for the question that I'm going to ask, but it bleeds some authority into your opinion. You also advocate for free speech. As we discussed on the phone, you believe that there should not be echo chambers. The composite other half of free speech is something we call compelled speech, where you were compelled to do an action or say something, right? A particular Canadian psychologist became very, very famous for standing up against compelled speech in the West. But there is a form of compelled speech, I feel, and I'm not sure what my opinion on this is, but there is a form of compelled speech that is rampant in India, especially in the film, in the cultural, in the art arena, and that is, you cannot deny standing up to the national anthem before the film begins.
Yeah.
Would you not say that is a form of compelled speech? That is a form of compelled action?
Of course it is. Undoubtedly it is, but I don't know when it started and how it started. In fact, I have done a lot of sarcasm around that also. But this is not within the purview of CBFC.
Right, of course.
This comes from state governments. Central government has nothing to do with it. So a lot of people think if Narendra Modi's government has done it, it's wrong.
Right.
It is done by local state governments. When in Maharashtra it was compulsory, in Delhi it was not compulsory, in some states and all those things. I think we should not force people to do all these kind of things.
Right.
But there is one thing I want to share with you. I used to be anti-smoking ads before films. In fact, all film industry, most of the youngsters in India, they hate them and they say, why do you do this?
Because they're very visual. They're
very
visual ads.
visual.
Yes.
But look at this. In India, the throat cancer is very widespread. Most of the people die because of eating these gutkas and smoking these cheap filtered cigarettes.
Unfiltered cigarettes.
Unfiltered bidis and
Right.
unfiltered cigarettes. But the statistics reveals, and this is not an Indian statistics, this is governed by WHO, so you have some credibility there. that because of these ads, since they started running them, the incidence of smoking and tobacco chewing has considerably going down. You know, and when they do these surveys, and this is a direct connection with these ads, because why? Because when my child goes with me and he sees that ad, he hates it.
Right.
He says, of course, he abuses CBFC and Narendra Modi or whoever he wants to, you know, let him do that. But the immediate impact is when he comes out and I take out and light a cigarette, he says, no, daddy, you cannot do that. Okay, and this behavior of children is exactly the same between a slum dweller's child and Mukesh Ambani's child. You know, that is the spectrum.
Right.
So, which means it's a good thing. You can use cinema as a mass media to also cultivate new habits which are healthier and more civil.
You are very right about that. Statistically, cigarette smoking is a phenomena very dominant in the lower socioeconomic stratas of society. And since cinema
And gutka chewing.
Right, exactly. And since cinema in India is such a mass medium to reach out to everybody, I fall in agreement with that. They should be, if nothing, more visual, so people stave off tobacco. From somebody who's used tobacco in the past, I still agree that those ads should be there and as visual as they are. But
National anthem. I didn't answer that.
Yeah, you sort of did. You sort of did. But if you want
I think I was little this thing. But let me just put it in. I don't think anybody by standing up to national anthem has become nationalist or patriotic.
Right.
There is no science which has
revealed something like
revealed anything like that. There is no trend like that. But at the same time, I also understand a society should also have the freedom to follow some rituals and some norms as they deem fit. You know, right? If society has decided, it's okay कि भाई पहुंच होने चाहिए. If your family has decided, I don't think you have to rebel against it all the time just because you want to prove that you have to rebel. So if people have collectively decided, and most of the Indians are happy with that. Okay, so that's why I says, because these people respect it, they are happy with it, I'll follow this tradition.
Right.
You know, I don't say, no, I will not stand up and I'll prove that I'm independent.
Right.
I don't become progressive by not standing up.
It's not primarily for the proof of independence and rebellion that it should not be the case. It is primarily a predicament, a legal predicament at that gets established, where I can mandate you to do something just because I have the sign of authority.
Indian democracy is not evolved to that level.
It has not yet, and that's my fear. That's my fear. And if it's a premature fear, I do understand, but it is very similar to how the Soviet society, or for that matter, more communist societies in the world, compelled behavior to occur in view of some mythical other, like for the people, for the tradition of so-and-so Soviet Russia and whatnot. But let's not get bogged down there. I have one, I think this is going to be my last question to you, and it's going to be the most interesting. I've been waiting for this all interview. Tell me about the marijuana activism you're a part of.
Okay. So, to put it very honestly, when I was in college, I have smoked marijuana.
I am in college.
Okay. So, okay, you can offer me some.
For sure.
So, because when I was growing up, marijuana was legal.
Right.
There used to be these theka, ganja, bhanga. And government of India used to sell them. For 20 rupees, you used to get this much, you know, like, and if you give 200 rupees, you need a big sack, you know.
200 rupees for conversion sake is $3. Just so
yeah,
everybody
so for
knows.
$3, you could buy like 1 ton of marijuana. It was very cheap because it grows in India everywhere, you know. So I used to smoke them. And then it became illegal, and then I totally cut off myself from that world. Okay. Though personally I believe marijuana, a limited amount of marijuana, is pretty good for creative people and married people. Okay.
The verdict is out.
Marijuana is definitely, scientifically speaking, it is good for your sleep, for your digestive system, and for sex. Okay, and all these three things put together make a good family. So, and this is science. See, the reason everybody is laughing
is because they know it's true. It's because they know it's true.
But we have converted it into a taboo word.
Right.
Okay, and that is a sad commentary on a modern growing society. It should not have happened. Marijuana has helped so many people fight various diseases. I'm not even getting into that. That's for doctors to decide. I'm only talking about Hindu civilization. In Hindu civilization, not the ultra fanatic Hindus, but the Hindu scholars and Hindu philosophers, why have they used it as a symbol attached with Shiva? Why?
Because Shiva was known to be somebody who was incited with anger. So as a calming mechanism. Am I wrong?
For variety interpretations can be there. Because marijuana was actually growing in every household.
Oh yes. Right.
Every household.
The word ganja is an Indian export to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Even in the Caribbean, even in the Rasta culture, it's an
Yeah.
Indian export, right?
And Indians, in Hindu culture, you did not smoke hash. Right?
No, really?
Yeah.
I thought Shiva smoked chillam with
No,
charas,
that was not hash. Chillam is a modern pop art. You know, it's
Acha?
pop art. Yeah,
Right.
it's pop art.
Interesting.
It was always bhang.
Right. The
It was
female cannabis. Right.
I don't know.
Yes. I think that's the differentiation.
Nothing. It's just the leaves of that plant, and the flowers are ganja,
Right.
and the milk, the raisin is charas.
Charas.
So the bhang, even today, I remember my grandfather used to do it every night, and he would all the children he would put it on our tongue because it was healthy and it's very good for mind. Any creative person you talk to, he'll tell you.
Right.
Unless you start like smoking from morning till late night, don't never do that. That's
Right.
not good.
I take that.
Yeah, that's really not good. And I've practiced it. That's why I'm saying it's not good. It makes you dull and slow. But if you smoke, it opens up your mind, and your taboos and your prejudices and biases opens up, and you appreciate beauty. That's one side. It's very good. Tuberculosis. It's a medicine for that. For cancer, various forms of cancers. It's a medicine.
Right.
And a society which is conflicting most of the times, a little marijuana can help.
I do not disagree.
You
I
know,
do not disagree.
and
especially
yeah.
in the parliament.
Yeah, in the parliament definitely.
And in the newsrooms.
Yeah, and most of these politicians drink alcohol and they become very unruly and very stupid and uncivil after that.
Right.
And in parliament, a growing little marijuana will help. But scientifically, it's been proven that if you have a little plant of marijuana, not the American way where you put lights and grow it, if in natural sunlight with the breeze like tulsi, if you put it in your home, don't consume it. If there's a plant, it definitely helps the vibes of your home. You know, so that's why. So I met this brilliant girl, Pooja Mishra. She had tuberculosis, but then she's consumed marijuana, not like smoke. She consumed cannabis, and she got cured. She was almost dying, and she started this activism. And in 6 states, it's become clinically legal. And yesterday, Karnataka state also made it legal.
Yes.
You know, clinically.
Right.
So that's a great news. So she came to me and she met me and she said, Vivek sir, you talk fearlessly on so many subjects. The problem is this issue will not become popular in India unless some people who are filmmakers and singers and writers and social activists, they support it. But before me, she met everybody in the film industry. And she said, I'm very disappointed that because people who are so rebellious and so scientific, progressive, they talk about sex openly. But when it comes to marijuana, they say, no, my brand equity will get destroyed. I cannot do that. A lot of money is riding on me, so I won't do that. So I said, you are in the right place. No money is riding on me. So I am going to support you.
Right.
So these 2 things, one is marijuana. I'm working on that activism. And second thing, I'm going to start a dialogue very soon. It's like announcing it now, which is on the sex education in India.
If you ever need me for that, that is something I feel dearly for. Please feel free to reach out.
But you look quite educated on that.
No, if you need me. I accept. Yes, I do feel very dearly for the conversation around sex in India because I was raised in a household where it was a hush-hush and a no-no up until very recently, and I had to force my way into that conversation such that now we can share a healthy relationship around that concept and not pretend like it does not exist.
Yeah, of course. And this whole Indian tradition now needs to change in modern world of co-education should be encouraged a lot. You know, the minute your child is 7-8-year-old, we start telling him, no, this is a girl, she's different, don't go when she's taking bath, don't look at. Human bodies are beautiful.
Right.
Children love it when they're 4 years old, they learn to look at each other's bodies, you know. And unless and until you teach the new society, I'm so sorry, I feel sad that I cannot talk about these things in open world because people make it political. But from the bottom of my heart, I think from the childhood, we should teach our children to appreciate the beauty of each other's bodies. You know,
Right.
Only when you understand the beauty of somebody else's body, you will never harm it. The reason you harm it is because you hate that body.
There is an alienation to that.
You are taught to that it's something else. You don't destroy beautiful things. Anything which you consider as beautiful, you never harm it. There will be no molestation. There won't be any groping. There won't be any rapes.
Right.
If you think the other body, both ways, man and woman, if the other body is so beautiful, you'll protect it. Isn't it?
Right.
But we teach them, we are different. You sit here, you sit there. We see our parents sitting apart. And about sex, don't talk about this. Don't tell the child. Don't show this.
Change the channel.
Change the channel.
Right.
You're not changing the channel. You are changing the cells of his mind, and you are teaching that child that there are few things which you should not do openly.
Right.
You should not express openly.
Right.
You know, so you should get out of those taboos. Two things we should come out of. One, that. And the second thing, when your child is not even asking you what is God, stop teaching him what is God.
Very interesting.
He's not asking you. He's not saying put a batasha and wine in my mouth and change me, or put this thing in my hand,
Right.
or put a tabiz on me and convert me. These are like branding, like you put Starbucks or this, the brand.
Right.
This is my brand. Why are you creating a brand out of a child? Only when he grows up and says, hey, tell me, mom, what is beyond this life, beyond this cosmos, what is God? Then say, I don't know, but this is what I think.
Right.
You go and explore on your own.
Right.
That is good parenting. But if you start telling your child, hey, you are this, that's why you should become this, that's why you should become... the poor guy is not even asking you what is God. He's not asking you the meaning of life. Let him go and destroy things, break things, write on the wall, discover each other's bodies, understand. Let him go and have some little bit sex here and there.
Right.
Let him grow up and...
correct age.
Yeah, and become... First, let him become a human being
Right.
who can live without the crutches of your understanding, limited understanding of the world. Let him explore on his own, and then you share your thoughts with them. This is my personal belief.
Right.
Now anybody can attack me after this.
Right. Vivek, those were all the questions I had for you. Do you have any questions for me?
Yes, I have a couple of questions
Please,
for you.
please.
Okay, first of all, I want to understand why you started this club. Where was the need for you to
The
start
club or
this
the podcast?
This podcast.
The podcast.
Yeah.
So I found that when I moved to America, I suddenly found that there was a massive cultural reservoir that I was unaware of back in India. And I am one of the more aware people that I've known all my life growing up in India. I grew up in a very urban setting, a very, Western-centric setting as far as schools and whatnot were concerned. Yet still I was unaware of that. And I realized that the trade-off for that cultural reservoir was a lot of political and a lot of entertainment and a lot of cricket conversations. We weren't really talking about things that mattered because we were so muddled in things that did not. And I thought to myself that this podcast could be a nice medium for me to export culture from America to India, and not just Western culture, but ideas in general.
Yeah.
You will note that none of what I say ever has a tone of authority. It at most has a tone of suggestibility. This is an idea you could consider. And all my enterprise is to bring about better cultural artifacts for the Indian population to play with.
Brilliant.
And this did not start off exactly with this idea in mind. It evolved to that place as I realized what the market space for this was, as I realized what people could do with listening to stuff like that. I also found that podcasting is a zero-player market space in India right now, so there is a massive void that needs to be filled, since given how much people commute in India and there is so much time that they spend doing nothing. Then there was parallelly the fact that learning and culture were having a very interesting moment around this time, right? Like the fact that YouTube and podcasts and all these other mediums are being used for educational content, like the kind of content you make as well. And I thought this would be the best way to plug myself in to the large debate in India. I've always had a fascination for talking about things that matter, and this became my medium.
Great, and you can work as a medium to bring across cultural understanding.
That's the intent.
Right,
That's
and
the intent.
I'm very happy. And my last question is, what makes you a rock star? Because a lot of people have been, since I posted, I'm talking to you, have been saying, hey, you are meeting that rock star. So is that your hair or the way you talk?
It's my genes. I'd say it's my dad's jeans.
Which one you are wearing? Oh, dad's.
I'm wearing pants right now. But I do not know. I'm flattered every time somebody says...
You are a rock star, let me tell you that.
Thank you. I really appreciate
You're
that.
a good guy, yeah. I like that. I like your energy.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. There is something unique that I bring to the table that I do not yet understand. People point it out. People have been for a while. And I credit it to the blessings and the conditioning that my parents provided me. I think there is nothing greater than that has happened to my life. And that is my fondest memory from my childhood. And that's about it.
Great, wonderful.
Thank you so much for bringing this bold spirit to conversation, Vivek. This has been
Thanks
so
a lot.
much fun.
Thanks a lot. If anybody has any questions.
Oh yes, if anybody has any questions, we're opening it up for a Q&A.
Thank you.
Gregory.
This just happened recently, so I was curious about the kind of connection. You were talking about how maybe marijuana could be helpful among politicians. I know it was somewhat in jest, but I'm recalling the Democratic presidential debate in which I believe Cory Booker kind of lobbed the accusation at Joe Biden that his decision-making wasn't as reliable because he was presumably on drugs. And he specifically said marijuana.
Yes.
And he made an implication that, in general, the Senate or the Congress in general would be is less effective as a result of their ability to be on drugs. So this is kind of in opposition to what you're arguing. What would you maybe say to Mr. Booker?
Can I condense the question?
Yeah.
So recently in the Democratic debate, I think it was 3 days ago now?
3 days ago.
3 days ago, one of the congressmen who's contesting for the presidential election, and correct me, Gregory, where I'm wrong, accused another of being incapable or incapacitated to make a decision because of their views on drugs. Am I right? Am I correct?
He basically made a retort. He said that Joe Biden opposes marijuana legislation,
Right.
legalization, and Cory Booker just kind of made like a funny retort that how could you oppose it? I thought you were high when you said that.
Right.
So the implication, what Gregory is pointing out, was that because he was high, he could not have made the right answer.
Oh, I see.
Which goes contradictory to the whole point.
Right.
So that's what he's asking.
Do you think people can make good decisions on marijuana?
I'm telling you from my personal experience with marijuana, I won't leave a country to somebody who's smoking up and making decisions. I won't agree with that because definitely it influences your mind, and
Right.
that's why I said for creativity and all those things, if you're doing when you're not responsible for others, when you're responsible only for yourself, for that level recreational marijuana is fine. But I was talking more from the clinical point of view that it's anyway this is used in all the medicines. Anyway it is used, So it's better that it should be used for clinical purposes and only very restrictively for recreational. You should not drive after smoking up. You should not make decisions, political or administrative or management decisions after smoking up. And I would say just if you ever want to do it, smoke up and go off to sleep with your own wife.
With your own wife, that's key. Did you have a follow-up?
I was just gonna say he ended up extending it to like, oh, all the people in Congress smoke, and I guess
Right.
Senator Booker's point was something about discrimination, but I just thought it became a broader point than just taking a jab at Biden. It became all these people in Congress are doing drugs, and I don't know if he intended it, but it kind of says something about our government.
Or the place that the government exercises. Did you have a question, Justin?
Yeah, I had a question. So, I guess like the American sort of like music scene and like the entertainment industry in general tends to get like very politicized. Like you see a lot of like figures in hip hop and whatnot, just like putting in their 2 cents about like various like political issues, and I guess to that end, like our entertainment industry is and can be very politicized. Is does the same sort of phenomenon happen with like the Indian music and like entertainment industry? And if so, I guess like to what extent do like I guess like major like figures in the arts or like hip hop and like music and whatnot, like I don't know, like to what extent do they try to insert themselves into like the whole issue of Kashmir?
He's wondering if there's any political activism on the part of artists in India that you note.
See, art should be used for politics, but politics should not be used in arts. That's what I would rather say. Leave artists alone, let them do what they have to do. But it is also should be artists' responsibility to bring about all the sides of the
Political
story.
awareness.
Political awareness about it. And art is a very good medium to do that. But sadly, as far as India, I'm no expert about American art scene and music scene. I won't know much about it.
Yeah.
But like what I have seen is, in India, when it comes to terrorism, there is only one side of the story. And we have shown a lot of sympathy to terrorists and naxals, even dacoits. I don't know if you know, dacoits were Robin Hoods, people who would pick up gun and shoot all the rich people, steal their money and, whatever. So we have shown that sympathy. I don't know for what reason, but this has been a continuous process. Until I came on the scene and I said, no, I'll present the other side of the story. As far as also, then I have also another point of view, though I also don't like the kind of precedent that you guys have, and a lot of people talk against it.
Yeah.
But I'm also not in favor of, at Oscar ceremonies and all these ceremonies, only one point of view coming out.
It's boring.
Yeah.
It's boring.
Because everybody will come and attack the other person. That person will become stronger.
Right.
You know, you should also have the other point of view. But it's we live in the kind of times where people don't have patience. We are going through a transition. If you look at it, most of the population is still half of the, just to put it simply, half of the population has grown up in analog age. Okay, and then the entire millennial population has grown up only in digital age. Then there are people like me who understand both the sides, the analog as well as the podcast age also, and the old-fashioned All India Radio also.
Right.
So there's a lot of confused lot here, confused lot there, confused lot there, and we are all like in a big ocean discovering what is right, what is wrong. And that's why we are so outrageous. We are impatient because we are trying to find our destination, the purpose of our being. I think just give it another 5-10 years, people will settle down and they will go back to their work.
Is there any other question?
I had one question.
Yes.
So, off late, since August 5th, obviously, we've seen a lot of latent hostility trickle into American culture. Prominent, figures in politics have made statements on Kashmir which look like almost the template that's being followed, like that's been shared around, and every politician is changing like few words and posting the same thing. When we saw that U.S. congressional hearings recently where Sunanda spoke and then before that Arti spoke, we saw like it almost felt like the hostility was planned and as if they were prepared to like take them down, and that's the kind of hostility Indian Americans have not seen before against India per se. We've had good diplomatic relations with US, but now this is trickling down to the daily lives of Indian Americans. If you speak anything about your homeland, or if you're not outlandishly condemning the government, then you're not on the right side of the political spectrum. So, as a person of Indian origin who lives in US, I just wonder what can we do individually through our own mediums. Like some of us have podcasts here, some of us are artists, some of us are writers. What can we do to bring awareness and improve this scenario, that and at least tell our side of the story?
Okay, yeah, and I have also noticed that. I've in last 2 years I've come here 2-3 times, and I've spoken about Kashmir also and whole lot of issues also, and I have never seen this kind of aggressive activism against me. And up at Purdue, I was there. So what is happening is 3-4 people will come. They are planted. Definitely you can make out. I'm experienced enough, and there are reasons to believe on paper. They are planted. They come ask you they attack you in a certain way, and they run away. And then within no time, the entire social media is filled with etc., 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 and they're spreading. Now, the two things are there. One is the financial power. Who has been funding? Okay, who gives donations to big media houses and all these social media things? I said Kashmir today runs most of the cyber crime, the cyber industry, the rumor mongering industry for rest of the Islamic terrorist groups. You have to understand this. I don't know why nobody is talking about it. It's clear. Anybody can go and find out where they come from. Because in UAE, in Saudi Arabia and all Syria and all these places, you can't do that. Kashmir is the only democratic state. Pakistan is not. So that's why they are free to run these things. They are sitting in Delhi. They are running some carpet shop in a 5-star hotel and running these operations. Somebody has to do a crackdown on them. And that's what is happening, that the minute you say Kashmir, they have this keyword, and anybody see if some ABC person says, nobody cares. If I say, and suppose he talks on this podcast and takes a stand, they will go against you also. I'll tell you how you can do it. It's very simple. I do not believe in attacking the other person. I do not believe that you should say things against Islam or all those. Yes, speak about terrorism because that's the global problem. But you should talk about your own strengths. Do not become enemy conscious. Do not become enemy centered, because then what will happen, the danger is after some time you will start behaving like your enemy. Enemy is the terrorism. Do not, in the process, you become an intellectual or emotional fundamentalist that whenever you see anybody and say, no, Islam is bad, this is bad, and we start abusing Muhammad and Prophet and all those things. Don't make that mistake. They want you to commit that mistake.
Right.
Don't fall in that trap. You talk about the greatness of Kashmir. You talk about why you don't have art and literature. You talk about them, why don't they have democracy in their place. Ask them what is their problem with the democracy. On one side you have Pakistan with no democracy, a bankrupt country. On one side you have the fastest growing democratic country. What is their problem? Ask them genuine questions. Talk about your strengths. Only when you meet Americans or any other people who don't know much about our culture, talk only about our strength. Give them parallel. If they talk about why Kashmir, tell them about Texas. Say how Texas happened. Show them their own this thing. And ask them, what are your views about minorities? Let them speak about minorities. And then tell them that 2% in Kashmir is minority or not. Above all, what I would do, my strategy is simple. Mostly these questions are asked by liberals. People who call themselves liberals mean people who don't believe in boundaries. People talk about global, what right US has to call these Congress sessions and pass resolutions in India? No business they have in this. Then why don't you do one thing? Get together 10, 15 young boys and girls and pass some resolution against racism, passed against homelessness in US. You can also do that. These are the tactics you can use, but above all, ask them what is the percentage of Muslims and Christians in the world, and what is the percentage of Hindus in the world, and a global map which is a minority. Simple. It's so simple. Tell them in a larger context, why are you limiting it to Kashmir? Come to India, come to Asia, come to the whole world. You don't believe in boundaries, you're a liberal person. Let's talk about humanity first. Hindus are diminishing society, it's minority, not even 15% population, whereas 65% total is almost, don't catch me on that, it can be 68, 70 something, Islam and Christianity. They run most of the world. The richest countries belong to them. They are the most powerful people. Most arms and guns are with them. The biggest of the corporations are with them. Everything in this world is with them. They run UNO. They run the most powerful media houses. Who are we? We are nobodies. We are a poor country carrying 60% poor people. Now look at it. Shouldn't they look at us with compassion and sympathy?
Right.
Isn't it? This is how you put your point across. Logically, it's not logical, it's real.
Any more? All right, Vivek, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And thanks a lot for organizing this at such a short notice.
You're most welcome.
All the
Thank you
best.
so much.